Just give me a second. I'm just setting up some stuff here. Okay. We seem to be okay. Visuals are active, which is something. Okay. Just attempting to wrangle a variety of things at the moment, so just bear with. I might cut this bit out of the VOD. Alrighty, might as well get started. Do I plan on hard? Is that a safe decision after what I witnessed last time? I might as well try to finish the whole thing on hard, just to say I have.
When I woke
I'm
up,
gonna regret this, aren't I?
I was all alone. Everyone's gone. Is it because of those monsters? What do I do now? Do I fight and live? Or do those monsters get me? I don't have any reason to go on living. But I'm scared to die. I'm so afraid of pain. Should I run away? I want to find somebody. I don't like being alone. But is there anyone left alive?
Okay, so this is the one and only sub scenario in this game, and possibly in the entire franchise off the top of my head. So where we play as a completely different character from the main story. So this time we're Maria instead of James, and I find this one I find very interesting. I find the prospect of remastering this particular segment very interesting, or whether that Bloober team feels the need to add any further scenarios, I guess, is really the question. I don't think there's anything else in here. The detail in these rooms is just it's really quite something else. Just a really powerful mood. There's not even any music playing, and you sort of get the visuals do all the speaking, right? You don't need anyone to tell you anything else. She doesn't need to say, "Oh, how grimy this is," or anything like that. So we're inside the club. So it's kind of significant that this is where Maria starts out. That this is where she is basically created. That she's created in a strip club because she's born out of James's sort of subconscious desires for Mary, but a more beautiful Mary, the Mary that he sort of the subconscious seems to remember, basically. So we've got a couple of weapons. And you can see that the revolver starts loaded with one bullet. So she was genuinely, when the game starts, she is created contemplating suicide, which is quite a grim start, but it's a very neat detail that there's just the one bullet in there, so you sort of know that that's exactly what she was thinking. And this is a funny revolver. I always thought it was a strange one because it's loaded with 10 bullets somehow. So it's one good revolver. Don't they normally take 6 or something? Okay. So basically, and what I like as well is that the space is sort of reinterpreted without the Heaven's Night music playing, and in the main game you sort of have this really nice tune for just this one location, and it makes the place sort of nice to hang around in. But here, sort of without the music and with the extra context of sort of Maria's horrifying existence, basically, her existence being entirely dictated towards a man's wishes and desires. This place is just given this extra level of just gross, I guess you'd say. It's sort of, you don't really want to spend any extra time here. Um, it's a significant location in terms of thematics, but it doesn't have, there's not much time spent on it. We don't dwell here for very long. I think all you have to do is pick up the cleaver and you're allowed to leave, sort of thing. And in the main story, as we saw, there's not even any need to stop there in the slightest, which is cool. It's cool that it functions like that. There's sort of something that's there to be lingered on, but it doesn't have to be lingered on physically. That it's a space that travels with you mentally, and that's a theme I'm really interested in exploring further. I think the idea of video game spaces existing outside and beyond the actual space that they seem to inhabit, something quite interesting about that idea that a digital space can in some way become, if not physical, then mental. It shifts. It's transferred from a digital construct. So I guess it'd start obviously as a mental construct in the eye of the designer, I suppose. But then it becomes digital, and then it sort of takes on a new life as the person who's experiencing the location sort of takes it in, sucks it in. And that's why I think so many games fail to stick in the memory as long as something like Silent Hill, because the location itself is considered. And if there's one thing I've learned in my life about spaces, it's that you take them with you. Just like people, I guess. People in spaces, they sort of move with you regardless. So we're just going to do the usual thing around here and sweep the street for any additional bullets, because goodness knows that I'm probably going to need them. Fortunately, on the streets here, the enemies are painfully easy to avoid, aren't they? So, as we saw at that other hoarding session, my 5-hour marathon, that you can just sort of weave back and forwards. So the idea is just to collect as much stuff as we can before we go into the main area of this sub scenario. So it's really cool. Another lovely camera angle there where you can sort of see the creature crawling around on the ceiling. And it is cool. I like that the implication that Maria is seeing all of James's monsters as well, and that they're also in some way hostile towards her. It just sort of muddies the water even further as to what she is. And I guess you're not supposed to think about it too hard, I suppose, but the implications of if the monsters had killed her on her way through the sub scenario, what exactly would happen to the main story? Would the town basically like spawn a new Maria? That's the question. Because there's a lot of attempted answers, right, as to where Maria comes from and what exactly she is and how exactly she was made. But I think while those are interesting questions, they're sort of not necessarily important. We sort of get this, I guess you'd say, like other sense about her that we don't need to know exactly who she is or where she's come from. She, in the main story, I guess she serves a particular purpose, right? She's there she's there as a story object, basically. She's sort of there to drive the story forward in a particular way and to challenge James in a particular way. But this sub scenario basically muddies the water with her a bit, right? So all of a sudden she's not just an agent of the town. She's a person who has like goals and dreams and hopes and some sort of sentience. Like the town isn't controlling her. Although you could sort of make the argument that maybe we're playing from the perspective of the town here with all these impossible camera angles and just guiding her along. But I think at the same time that there's something um, really quite interesting about just how she is transformed in this simple, like, the scenario isn't very long, how she's transformed in this really simple scenario to be a completely different character with completely different context related to her. And that's powerful, right? And I'd be curious to know whether the scenario was planned from the start, whether they were like, oh, we always wanted to include this, or whether it was sort of only after the success of Silent Hill 2 that they sort of thought, well, we can just make something and slap it together and chuck it in the director's cut edition sort of thing, or the Xbox re-release. Can't remember which one came first. No, it's just, these are interesting questions because, as with all like DLC and updates and sort of post-patch stuff, you have to wonder, like, about authorial intent, right, and how it works in this era, um, whether or not there's any kind of anything we can actually decide as this is the definitive canon, this is the definitive work. Like, you look at something like this, Silent Hill 2 on the PC running with the enhanced edition, is this in some way, is this what the developers had always intended the game to look like? If only they'd had slightly better technology, that this is what it would have looked like. I mean, we can't be sure, right? And that's the really tricky thing, is that when we are playing video games that are constantly being remade and updated and delayed, and who knows what else, when there's so much corporate meddling, I guess, is one of the main reasons. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the main reasons that this sort of thing happens. You have to really wonder where the intent is and how we sort of start to unpick stories and characters and legitimate interpretations of the work. If there is a legitimate interpretation of any work, indeed, there's provided there's evidence. I think there's an argument that can be made for all kinds of interpretations. You certainly couldn't say this was a story, I don't know, about James's secret desire to go to the moon or whatever, because there's no evidence to support that. But there's plenty of other sort of evidence within the story to suggest countless other sort of interpretations, and that's really what we're after. So I'll pick these things up. So we got a nice new Maria save screen as well, which is cool. Fireplace is boarded off. Do not use is written on it. Okay. No, I mean, I guess I'll talk about this. I plan to talk about this whole sub scenario, or at least the place of the setting of the sub scenario, in a future video. There's something really quite haunting about this space. There's no music being played. There's no extra sort of detail being enforced upon us. There's just this really well put together space with a great amount of like detail. Like, just, you can see the leaves that have sort of mysteriously come through the fireplace, and you're like, well, how the heck did that happen, sort of thing. There's any bushes or trees in here, and I don't think there's too much to interact with in here, actually. Model of the Earth, got no use for that. No, it's quite rightly you don't. Nothing inside, too bad. Painting of flowers. It's just really innocuous stuff, but all these little, like, you imagine if the room was just sort of the bare essentials, right? If they just chucked the couch in or whatever, and maybe some chest of drawers, but hadn't like lined the shelf with plates or pictures, or hadn't hung the head of an animal up there. I don't actually know is that meant to be a goat? Is it? Then the space wouldn't feel quite so real, and I think that's why people connect to Silent Hill in particular, is that they manage to make every space feel particularly real. So got a map here. Baldwin House map. Okay. So now the usual business begins. So how many bullets? So quite a few bullets. And let's get even more bullets, basically. Oops. Forget I'm playing on hard mode and can easily run into stuff. So I'll let this cutscene play. Just a nice quiet stream today, I think.
Is somebody there? Open up. Hello?
Stop it. You're disturbing me.
There's some good music that comes in now.
Thank God. I finally found somebody. Can you open the door?
No.
But why?
Is it really necessary for me to answer all your tedious questions?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I want to be alone. Other people just irritate me.
I just want to see another human face. Do you know what's happening in this town? There's no one here. Just monsters.
Yes, I know. But so what? It has nothing to do with me. No one here means there's no one to disturb me.
You want to be alone in this insane asylum?
Yes, exactly. But how can you say that it's this town that's insane? Perhaps it's we who are insane.
Ooh.
Both of us. Hopelessly insane. Are you satisfied? Would you leave me alone?
My name is Maria. What's your name?
The fact that she gives herself a name is really significant as
Ernest.
well.
Hemingway?
Baldwin.
Ernest? I'll be back.
Right, so we have this really interesting interaction between what seems to be a legitimate inhabitant of Silent Hill, which is not something you'd expect to find, especially in the second game when everything is all particularly messed up and seems to have been messed up for a very long time, as opposed to the first one, which still had a few people kicking around that sort of knew exactly what had happened to the town. Whereas in this one, there's clearly sort of no real indication of anyone who knows anything that's going on. This space in particular, I'd love to figure out how to get like a free camera working on Silent Hill 2, so I can get some really nice shots for some video essays I plan to make. I do really need to do that to get that working. So I think there's something very cool about just trying to untether the camera and see if I can find some cool shots. Okay, so we just heard a sound, and that will have been the fireplace, I think. Yep, this way. So yep, the fireplace is now open. So I don't know if do we want to go there yet? I don't know if there's anywhere else to go actually beyond there. So yeah, we'll go out there now. Really cool. I really like these just tiny little art pieces, but they add a lot to the to the game, to the feeling of interacting with specific objects, like all the notes and stuff being delicately painted and that kind of thing is really cool. For some reason, there's a ladder in the fireplace leading up. Along the way, I can see something that looks like a hole. Climb the ladder. Yes. And this is, I don't know why, but one of my favorite spaces, um, I guess in video games, but also just in the whole game. I mean, it's really something quite special. Um, just a hidden little garden like this is something. If it wasn't built into the bloody fireplace, so it filled up with smoke every time, I think I'd like something like this if I was ever lucky enough to own own a giant mansion. Okay, so basically, there's a puzzle here. One I'm not very good at. There's a square depression in the center of the tombstone, and above that is a carefully carved epitaph. Along with you died joy. All that remains is despair and a future of meaningless tomorrows. But I will never give up. One, to see your beautiful smile again. One, to beg the blessings of the gods. I wait for that day. When the boards cover all sadness too will be covered. But until my dreams return to reality, I will have to swallow all the pain. There's a key firmly embedded in the stone beneath the depression. No matter how I try, I can't pull it out. So basically, the idea is to use these boards and arrange them in such a way that we hide everything from we hide the blue from sight. So I'm just going to try a random assortment just to show you the sort of thing I mean. So I don't think that's going to be right, is it? What is it? Not quite. So there's one still there. The board has been inserted. Open holes the board overlapping. I can still see the side. Remove the board. Yes. And remove that as well. Okay. Yep, I need to read that again. In the interests of time, so we know what to do. But in the interest of time, oops. Okay, so first one is the red one. Then the black one. And then here we go. So we got the key. Acacia key. Excellent. So now we can leave this. It's a brilliant little area. I mean, it says a lot. It's very little, you know. There used to probably be this really lovely, well-tended garden in here. Does it even appear on the map? Sort of. It's like above the lounge. But you can sort of see that over the years everything's become overgrown and left to waste away, like no one's been looking after this memorial area. And that's significant as well. It's environmental storytelling at its best, I think. Nothing obvious is spelled out to you, right? And it's very easy to, I think, be too obvious. Wait, so where do we need to use the acacia key? Is it going to be upstairs? Yeah. Go back up the stairs. It's really a lovely, lovely game. Here we are. We're back.
Ernest? Are you there? No. I guess not.
Okay, so no awareness there. So we need to find some way to use this acacia key. Is that one of those ones? Oh, no, no. Not there. So I think it's at the end of this one, isn't it? And this is another room. I think I just like all the rooms in this house, but boy, it's atmospheric. Just a little tree out of the window and the fog, sort of slipping in through cracks in the window. You know, that's atmosphere for you. It's a shame that not many games do the kind of melancholic atmosphere that this game has this well. Matches. Alright, small bed for a child. So there was a child that lived here. Shelf is filled with fairy tales and other children's literature. I'm sure I've never read this, but somehow it seems familiar. Lock is broken. Stuffed animals line the top of the shelf. Nothing very interesting. Oh, is this a teddy bear? It's not very well made, but it's sort of cute anyway. I bet Laura would love it. She loves bears. Laura? Who am I talking about? So you can sort of see that Maria is struggling to reconcile Mary's memories with her own lived experience. And her own lived experience is not very long, but she's like an abstraction of Mary, basically. And you imagine just how terrifying it must be to live like this. This calendar's from 10 years ago. 10 years ago in November. To sort of be constructed entirely out of someone else. So firstly, out of someone else who the person liked more, and then for someone else entirely. You sort of Maria is a really tragic character. So we might have just heard a little bit garbled there, but fell out the window, and what happened? And I had some light. Well, it's a good thing. I have 2 or 3 matches, so we can light this candle. Perfect. And she moved it to the center of the room for us. But there's something here immensely tragic about Maria's character. I think she's one of the most interesting characters in video games, specifically because of the extra context that this sub scenario gives. I don't think off the top of my head I could do an analysis of her justice. I mean, I've been trying, but it's not. I really do want to do her and Angela justice in particular. If I was to do separate character analysis videos. Is this a birthday card? To my dearest daddy. Happy birthday from Amy Baldwin. Okay. So we'll go see if Ernest would like to reminisce. Give it.
To my daddy.
Okay. Going to say, I was really expecting an ambush here, and I'm glad I remember that there was indeed an ambush in this corridor. So I guess, the monsters that appear for Maria are also significant. I mean, they're the same as James, but the fact that she doesn't face any nurses, she just faces the basically the monsters that represent sort of trapped or encaged femininity, like these mannequin monsters that are basically just reductive of the female form to just 2 pairs of legs, sort of trapped mutely and horribly together. And then the 2, what's the other one called? The straight jacket ones that sort of scuttle along the ground. They're also these fellows. They're also representative of that as well, sort of feminine coded with the platform heels and exposed buttocks. it's significant that these are the ones that Maria fights, because these are probably anxieties as well that, I mean, given from James, but also part of Maria's sort of who Maria is in the story and her sort of potential issues of self worth and whatnot. So let's go in here. Health drink. Stay fit and strong. Okay, so he's vacated. Another brilliant room. I think I just like watching fog through the window, to be honest. I think it might just be a me thing. There's a book here. It looks like a plant encyclopedia. Acacia, a genus of evergreen trees of the mimosa tribe of the pea family. Its tiny flowers are yellow or white and grow in clusters. Common varieties include the gum tree. The acacia tree is a potent symbol in many religions across the world. In Christianity, it represents eternal life and morality. In ancient Egypt, it represented purity and rebirth, while in ancient Babylonia, it was thought of as the tree of the goddess Ishtar and was a symbol of life. It was also a holy tree to the ancient Jews who built the sacred Ark of the Covenant from it, and for whom it signified a peaceful death and a release from grief. So it's kind of interesting that we got a acacia key, right? That's not an accident, especially not in the house where we sort of seem to think that someone has just fallen out a window. Especially a young child seems to have fallen out the window, and all of her stuff. The calendar from 10 years ago. I cannot see what's going on. Here we go. I think there's some spooky ambience that starts here. I'm just going to check and see if there's anything else that we need from in here. Just need to kill this one first, I think, is the main thing. Yeah, the way the inhuman movements, I hope they keep that kind of horrible twitching in the remake. I think it's an essential part of the monster's character. It gives them this really unnatural quality, even while they have these human features. It's that final uncanny topping that I think that they really needed, right? Okay, so we can unlock that door. I don't think there's actually anything else. I think I wasted some ammo and stuff here, didn't I? How much? Have I taken any damage? I think I took like a sliver. So go down here and I should. I think that's the problem, isn't it? I've turned the music off. Been depriving people. Yes. Turned the music off last time. That's something I should have remembered to do. So now we've got some spooky ambience back. I was wondering what was missing from this experience. And I knew I wasn't having to raise my voice. So basically, I just want to see if I can sprint through this corridor. Tried all the wrong doors before the right one. That's typical. It's actually funny how good the music is at raising the stress level. Before I sort of was approaching the monsters fairly calmly, but even just with that sort of droning music, it adds a lot, changes the mood a lot. I think that's something I'd also like to study the effects of music in horror games. And I mean, I know they did. I think it was on QI or something where they showed a video of a shark, and they sort of had like friendly music playing in one, and then neutral music, like no music playing, and then scary music. And it was amazing actually how that affected it, like how easily humans are swayed by music. And I'd love to see the effect that has on game playing in particular, like how important, like if you're playing a game without sound, are you missing something, you know? I'd be curious to do some more research into that, I think. And it's really, so this is because Maria doesn't have a flashlight or a radio, and so that's the music that plays to warn you that there's a monster in the room with you, and it's pretty good music. And what I did mention before was that the soundtrack for this sub scenario was never officially released. So I think some really awesome dedicated person painstakingly recreated it, or ripped it from the game files, or recorded it in game, and pieced it together as best they could to sort of give it an unofficial release. And all of those that person's unofficial track titles have sort of taken roost in the fandom, which is really cool to see. Just sort of have for someone to have that effect, I just think it's cool. Last memories. I have the strongest trust, you may even call it faith, in the miracle called resurrection of the dead. Upon the hill where the light descended, the beast intoned his song. With words of blood, drops of mist, and the vessel of night, the grave become an open field. The people wept in fear and joy at the reunion, but my faith in the salvation of Zootchilpaba did not waver. I just butchered that. I apologize. It is also spoken of in the ancient legends. The original worshippers did not believe that death was the end, but that it was simply the path by which the deceased returned to nature. They also believed the process was reversible. Something imprinted towards the bottom of the page. Did Ernest write this? What could it mean? Blood equals red, mist equals white, night equals black. So, okay, that's good. So that's another puzzle we need to solve.
Do you know a little girl named Amy?
Here's my favorite track coming
Why
in.
do you ask me that?
This letter. To my dearest daddy. It's from a girl named Amy Baldwin. Your daddy?
Yes. Where'd you find that?
Up in the attic.
Oh. What a fool. Now, when it's too late, I finally understand why. Why she was there. Why she was holding that empty envelope when she fell.
Ernest. Amy. She isn't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I reminded you.
No need to apologize. You didn't remind me. I've never forgotten. Maria, some things we forget, and some things we can never forget. It's funny. I'm not sure which one is sadder. It's been 10 years, but I still.
Ernest. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
No, it's fine. Maria, that letter.
I'll leave it here.
Thanks. Maria? So you must be. That's why. That's why you could see me.
Huh?
So perhaps that means that I can hope for a miracle as well.
What do you mean?
I think that's a really beautiful cutscene.
In the apartment next door, there's a bottle containing a white liquid. I don't know exactly where it is, but I know it's in there somewhere. I must have it.
You want me to get it for you?
Please.
Why don't you just get it yourself?
If I could, believe me, I would. But
White?
Camera angles are so good.
I'll open the stairway door.
Ernest, do you really believe it will work?
I don't know.
Well, that's okay. I don't mind fighting for an impossible cause. Anyway, it beats just giving up and doing nothing.
Maria, thank you.
Words cannot express exactly how hopeful I am that this scenario is recreated faithfully with the same level of melancholy as the single room can imbue. Clock here doesn't look like it's running anymore. Anything else is here? No, that was the one we just read. So I need to go across and what is she looking at exactly? It's hard to tell. Is it just this? Yeah, just the present. Okay, got rid of that. Unlocked. So yeah, might as well. I'll head back through here and save real quick, just in case something bad happens to me. Because as we've seen, as we saw the other day, no matter my experience with the game, hard difficulty always has something horrible up its sleeve, doesn't it? Just like respawning enemies like that right in my face. My favourite. So yeah, nothing there. So what do you mean by the... I mean by the stairway door exactly if we can't go up there? Oh, can we go down this? Is that the side bit? No, I wasted my bullets on the wrong enemy. Might try the cleaver out. Ugly but powerful and easy to use, and we'll see. It's not going so well for me now, is it? A bit less exciting than the old revolver. But does the job. And the music fades away, just like the radio static to show that everything is fine. So I don't have to kill that one either, I'm just dumb. Which one then? Oh, did he mean if we go... I don't really want to go back, I'm probably going to get eaten. So like this way... This one? Don't have a map of this area. Okay. I think I'm going the right way. Love the camera angles that show like nothing, so you don't know whether you're walking into a trap or not. Some kind of plate on the floor. Amy Baldwin. She was loved too much by gods, and years was not enough time. So lovely, we got lots of bugs in here. I like how the bugs also all sound like they're sort of wind-up toys or something almost. Not sure exactly what significance that has, but I'm just going to try squish them all. As many of them as I can or need to. So I think, is this... Yeah, so we're meant to be... This is like the bug hallway and the that leads to the apartment. So for some reason, the Baldwin Manor leads right into this set of apartments, I think. And there's... So I can kill this thing before I discuss anything else. Who's next? Anyone? That one. Anyway, you can see keep out of haunted mansion, implying that, well, Ernest might in fact be a ghost or something similar, which is a cool addition to Silent Hill's roster of uncanny things. So I think I might just put my revolver back out. Much easier, isn't it? It's quite a powerful, much more powerful than the pistol, isn't it? If only she kept that and given that to James. James really could have used that. Nothing else in here, is there? Just just more lovely camera angles. Just you can just tell I'm infatuated with this game. I apologize. I waste too much time in these streams just admiring the look and the locale. So this place might look familiar to us. This is the first apartment section that we find in the main game. And it's just as creepy now as it was before. So might as well get rid of more of these monsters. See some more bugs as well. So yeah, the bugs are the only non-human entity in this game. I think the only monster that certainly doesn't have any human features, which I find interesting. Like just one bug doesn't count for the old enemy trigger. This where I need to go. First aid kit. Health drink. The game's quite generous with its supplies. So yeah, we got the white liquid. So that's not too difficult. This is the room. Oh no, this is the second apartment, isn't it? That's not the first one. This is the room with the coin puzzle in it, the famous coin puzzle. That can be quite devious. Okay. Do we wanna? No, it's probably just not to bother. We'll just head back out, I reckon. This doesn't... Are we allowed to go out into the... Oh no. Whatever. I'm going the right way anyway. Probably don't need to do any additional exploring. There's only one ending for this scenario anyway. Gotcha. Just a matter of remembering where to go. Back down here. I like the loading. There's no door there. Unlike most Silent Hill little loading segments. Gone the right way. Through the corridor filled with bugs. Back into the Baldwin house. Run back up the stairs. So you can see this sub scenario is much easier compared to the main game. Even though the intent is probably that you play it after. You're not supposed to play it before the main story, because it sort of does spoil a few things.
Thank you, Maria. That's the only item I couldn't get myself. By the time I found out about it, I could no longer leave this house.
Now, who just left it sitting on the apartment?
So long.
Yes, but Will...
Maria, the gods are here. You know it too. You were born in this town.
I'm not sure God is the right word.
I'm obsessed with the little details.
Do you
The
believe
gentle
in
way
fate?
she sets it down.
Not really.
That's fine then.
Ernest, can I open this?
This is a dead end. There's nothing beyond here.
I know. So, what if I had said I believed in fate?
That James. He's a bad man.
James... Yes. I know.
He's looking for the you that isn't you.
PT. The only me is me.
He's kind?
Are you sure the only you is you?
Do you know something?
Yes. Maria, you're...
Anyway, that's just what you think. You don't really know anything.
Like how her natural instinct is to spring
That's
to
fine.
defend James, even though she doesn't know him. She's sort of suppressed what he's done as well. She doesn't know. You come in here and there's nothing. I think there's some forest trail on this track. Not a good way to end. But yeah, there's no one in Silent Hill that can help Maria. So all she gets to do is do what fate told her to do, or what the town told her to do, and go meet someone who she probably shouldn't meet in the first place. There's nothing that he can offer her. And in casting the gun aside, she sort of casts away her own agency in the story. She sort of accepts her fate, even though it's incredibly unjust. Her very existence is horrifying, and that's what I hope to make a video on.
Mary? No, you're not.
Do I look like your girlfriend? My name is Maria.
So the conflict of her trying to assert her own identity against Mary's and also against James's desires is something that is a constant struggle throughout the game, and I think it's only through this extra sub-scenario that we really get an insight into who she is, where she came from, and it recontextualizes her from just like a potential enemy to someone, a really tragic character with a tragic backstory. And I hope that they do this sub-scenario justice in the remake, because I think without it you have a lesser game. I mean, quite a lot of DLC and expansions these days is unnecessary padding, but what they did here was really clever, and they added it for a reason, you know. they found a way to make a character in the base game even more interesting. They didn't detract from the story or make it feel like padding. The scenario was not included with the original release, so when it was originally released, it just was the main scenario, and then I think it was alongside the release for the original Xbox that they included the scenario, and then they also re-released it on PS2 in the Director's Cut version. So this scenario sort of didn't exist in the 2001 release, but I think in every subsequent official release, this scenario has been included. So it was also included in the much maligned HD collection as well. And I think it's interesting that this scenario works so well for me to add to the main game, because there's a lot of bad expansions, there are a lot of bad DLCs out there that sometimes, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there've been a couple that sort of have left a bad taste in my mouth. Whereas this one feels like a natural extension of the base game, and I think that's what all DLC should be, you know. And playing this through pretty cleanly felt like an actual proper ending, other than the travesty of the other day. It felt nice to end with something a bit more solid. Hugely enjoyable, and you sort of see, the way that Maria's life ends, no matter what happens, is entirely unjust for the brief glimpses of humanity that we get to see here. Recontextualizes the main game, and its final boss fight and any interaction with Maria is truly tragic, I think. So yeah, I don't think it doesn't give us a rank, but you can see, like, this scenario, it doesn't take very long to play through. There's not very much to pick up, not even that many enemies. Yeah, I only took 75 points of damage, and I could have done a bit better than that if I'd remembered exactly where to go. I think I could have avoided that mannequin enemy who hit me in the face. And just with the one puzzle as well, and no puzzle difficulties, it sort of also feels a bit less relaxed. And this, I don't think I got a chance to talk about it, but I do really like just the game result screen. The music here is a really, it counterbalances a lot with the feeling that you've sort of been through. You've been through this really horrible journey, and no matter what ending you get, somehow it's quite fitting, because I think every ending is at least some way slightly melancholic, but some of the ending, like the ending I got, was a bit more hopeful. And I think this particular track, Pianissimo Epilogue, works really brilliantly to sort of keep that feeling intact, to sort of be a lovely capstone on the game, in sort of mood and atmosphere. I think that feeling is really unrivaled, and it's so simple. I guess it's so 2000s, right? Like the whole, like, game result, everything. It just, I guess what I like about it is that it's unashamed of its status as a game. I like games like the new Resident Evils still do this to this day as well. Like, have the result screen that sort of shows that it wasn't a film that you just played through. It was a game as well, and there are sort of interesting things that you can do with that too. Still, that you shouldn't be ashamed of the fact that you just played through a game or something. I don't know exactly how to articulate these thoughts, but there's something to be said for this kind of thing. I don't know if you agree, but I really like it when games do this kind of thing, when you just sort of presented with irrefutable evidence that it's a game, and that it was also, like, I don't know, it feels very human. I think I'm rambling. I think I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, no background in the game results screen like there might be in Resident Evil. Yeah, because it's really interesting because I think, if I remember correctly, so Silent Hill 4 definitely has a background as well in the game results screen. And I can't remember if Silent Hill 1 does or not. I think it might. I think it might have just a picture of a notebook, if I'm remembering correctly. Though it's been a while since I played that one. I think Silent Hill 3 might also have one. There's something plain and simplistic about it that sort of sticks with me. That sort of lets you. It's the minimalism, I think, that lets me soak in the music. Just sort of the feeling that you can sit back and relax, and you've surmounted the obstacle. You've passed through the gauntlet. You're still alive, sort of thing. There's just a feeling of allowing just the ability to allow the player to decide their own emotions, I guess, at that moment. Because where the game mostly is cajoling you emotionally to think in certain ways, I think this one is particularly, like, you sort of finally set free almost. Like, you get to decide how you're feeling. And it's kind of rare that happens. Like, there's not even any melancholy or hopeful image there, right? There's just there's nothing. And you're sort of finally allowed to decide for yourself how you feel. No outside input other than the music. Yeah, it's something special, I think. That was a great question. Thanks. I think I could sit here all day and listen to this. Yeah, sense of finality is a good way to put it. Just sort of a real capstone, you know, a definite ending, without any further input from the game. I mean, it's like that, and they might have just ran out of time to add a background. And this is the kind of thing that. Thank you. You like my interpretation better? Thank you. I think, I don't know. It's the kind of thing where some people would be like, "Oh, you're looking way too much into it." They just didn't have a suitable background to add into it, and they would have if they did. But I think I was saying, I don't know if you were there for that part of the stream yesterday, but I said yesterday that there's sort of the reappearance of the Angela's boss, the abstract daddy boss fight in that weird, like, fleshy room. That boss reappears as like a regular enemy in the hotel, and for years and years and years, people have thought, oh, these were here for like some symbolic reason, like, oh, they've sort of been Angela's like around, or she's been part of her guilt has been transferred onto James or whatever, and we have no idea exactly what the monster looks like for Angela, for instance. And there's all these theories, but then it turns out, like, one of the developers, I think it was like a Twitter post or something, and they're just like, "No, we just didn't have another monster, and we wanted to like chuck like a different monster in there but that's still cool, right? Like, because the strength of Silent Hill is that we have all of these interpretations that are still perfectly valid. Like, the strength of Silent Hill and its metaphors and its symbolism is so strong that we, as fans, can accept all of these different interpretations of little details in the game that I think in other games people would just sort of like gloss over. But in this one, every detail matters, and everything can be put together and cohered into a single whole, if that makes sense. Yeah, that was relatively early in yesterday's stream, before the pain of the final Pyramid Head fight. But I think that kind of thing is really cool, because that relates to something I was talking about at the beginning of this stream as well, about authorial intent and whether it matters what the author thinks, and how we determine even what the author thinks. Like what the author's saying about their work might have been relevant, for instance, in the first patch or iteration of their game, but then maybe someone will change something and all of a sudden that interpretation might no longer be valid, and I know in games, like a lot of the time, it's mechanical stuff that's changed, but also we can have narrative or environmental details changed in certain patches, or like voice actors changed, or that kind of thing, and then you sort of have to try and reconcile exactly what your experience is with what the intended experience is, if such a thing exists, alongside who knows how many other people's experiences. And it's a question I've been grappling with a lot lately, trying to figure out if there's anything like authorial intent left or possible in an environment where video games can be always online and can be pulled from stores or subscription services at a whim, or things can be changed on the fly constantly. I sort of start to wonder what the future of narrative will look like as video games become more and more popular. I wonder very much what will happen to traditional narratives, in even not just in video games but everywhere. But I mean, my focus will be in watching video game narratives evolve particularly, and I wonder what will happen to those or to these kinds of stories. I don't think the appetite for them might not go away, but I think the way that a whole argument on Twitter recently about whether James was there was, I think, and that's the kind of thing that's really like that fascinates me, because a lot of people will take the developer's word as gospel, right? Like, oh, they debunked like a fan theory, and I think that is also like this. I'm not saying either interpretation is right or correct. Like, I think certainly the author's opinion should probably have more weight, but I also don't think necessarily that, in most circumstances anyway, that an author's opinion is inherently should overwrite a person's own opinion in terms of intent. Like, if someone sees something in the game that relates to them personally, or they find enough evidence for, even if it's like quote unquote debunked by the developers, I don't know if that's something that, like, you still can't take that away from the person, which is where the question of intent lies, and how much weight we should give to the developers, because it's not just one developer either, right? Like, it's a team of developers, and you wonder like where the decision came from, and whether even some other developers on the same team might have a different opinion about it. Even as the years have passed, like their own opinion might have changed from when they released it, as it's sort of evolved and as it's been like fan patched and that kind of thing. It's really tricky, right? Like, it's hard to see a resolution to it as a scholar. There's no like, oh well, the author's intent matters, or we're just looking at the game itself, regardless of what the author says, and finding our own evidence from that. I mean, these are two really important critical lenses that people use in literary studies. But I think it's complicated even more in larger productions. Like, it's already hard enough when you're looking at a single work by a single author. But I think when you stretch it out to like a team of, the team on Silent Hill 2 wasn't very large still, I don't think, but that's still like this, I don't know, there's still a lot of people who are involved in the making of the game. Yeah, like, I think there are certainly some instances where you should listen to the developer's intent, and you shouldn't. You probably shouldn't bite back. Like, if someone was like vehemently arguing again, like that, oh, the story, it's actually about James's secret desire to fly to the moon or whatever, the developer can just straight up should be able to straight up say, no, it's not. Here's what it's actually about. But again, like, even though that interpretation is ridiculous and silly and there's no evidence for it, that the change of opinion has to come from the person themselves. Like, no matter, yeah, I mean, you see this on the internet all the time, right? Like, people will sort of sling opinions like back and forwards to sort of no avail, because the other person, like, neither of them want to concede, right? They're sort of convinced that they're right. And I think with games, you're sort of looking good old YouTube arguments. With games, you're looking for an opinion that, or like a resolution or a conclusion that doesn't necessarily exist. You might be able to find something resembling a consensus in, I don't know, maybe in Silent Hill, say. Like, you could sort of get like over 50% of people agreeing with the interpretation of the game, or maybe more. There's like a general flow to the stream, basically. But there will always be people who sort of find personal stuff in there that the developers didn't intend necessarily. Which, I mean, that's where a lot of controversies come from, is people seeing things in the work that even the authors didn't intend, and then all of a sudden the author has to contend maybe with their own hidden biases, or whatever, or the fact that they didn't put sort of proper trigger warnings or gating around it, or whatever. God, no, it's a fascinating question, I think, as to, like, with something like an MMO or like a live service. Like, I'd be curious to know, like, in 20 years, for instance, would there be a definitive text for like something like Destiny? Like, would the developers be able to point and say, oh, this is the point at which the game was, like, is that, like, the game is complete, or would that be like the end of the life cycle, or would that some developer like point to the middle and be like, well, here's where my involvement ended, and so this is where the game canonically rests for me in my mind, and what interpretation of that is legitimate and valid? It's painfully difficult to unravel, I think. And speaking as someone who wants to develop games myself, I think, like, that would be, for me, that would be a real temptation to make things more perfect, to sort of come back to it, and even in a couple of years after I'd released a game, for instance, and sort of like, oh, I can polish this up. But then in polishing it up, maybe I ruin part of the experience for someone else. Like, is that something I have to worry about too? I don't know, like, because using Silent Hill 2 as an example again, the HD remake was so maligned for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons was that the voice actors were changed in the HD remake, and they sort of, after some backlash, they re-included the original voices, but the new voices give off a completely different tone. And while that might have suited whoever was making the HD collection, a lot of fans, it seemed, maybe even the majority of fans, believed that these new voices actually, like, were to the great detriment of the game. Like, all of a sudden the conversations weren't so ethereal and dreamlike. They sounded like James was voiced by what's his name, Troy Baker, I think his name is, and he does like the gruff, like, everyman hero, like, really well, but that's not James. James is sort of this lost character, and you sort of, like, these are questions that just sort of start, like, piling up on top of each other when I look at game development, and also looking at analyzing stories in games, is a question I have to ask myself. is there ever a definitive version of a video game in the modern era? Like, for instance, some people might argue that Silent Hill 2 without the enhanced edition is actually the best way to play the game. Like on the original PS2, like that's it. Like that's the only definitive canonical way to play Silent Hill 2 or whatever. But then so many people don't have access to that, and then so other people's choices will be to get it on PC and then to download the enhanced edition mod. And most people will say, "Oh, these days seem to say, oh, this is the best way to play the game," in HD resolution with some higher res textures and stuff, and like with some glitches fixed. But then some people will be like, "Well, they've added a few things." Like I saw there was a complaint. I can't remember exactly what it was about. I think it was the addition of something as simple as a little fridge light in the Brookhaven Hospital, when the fridge that you open with Maria as James to find one of the rings that go in the painting, or on the hand that sticks out of the painting. And this fridge light, some people complained about that because that wasn't part of the original experience. And that's another, like, you're sort of muddying the waters with like fan recreations and stuff, right? Like fan patches and all that kind of thing. And in some cases, like I'd argue that they're essential, like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Like I literally can't play that without the fan patch, because the game is like unplayable on my PC without all the bug fixes and modern updates. But then I wonder if there's anyone out there who sort of insists on keeping a computer from like 2004 that sort of runs it even with all like full of its bugs and that kind of thing, and sort of sees himself as a purist. And like where do we draw the line and say this is where the game stops, this is how it's meant to be experienced? Like I'd advise most people to play games without mods for the first time, right? But then other people will, like I've had people ask me like, should I install mods on the original Pathologic to play it? It looks hard, or it looks gross, or whatever. Like it looks different is often the main complaint from the second one. And I've seen like other sort of comments like on like Fallout New Vegas or something, like, oh, what mods do I need to play the game? Like what mods do I need? And all of a sudden, like, the developer is not where it ends. It sort of takes on a life of its own. It morphs into something completely different. And then do the developers themselves, the original developers, do they say, oh, you should play the game with these patches or whatnot? God, no, it's interesting. Do you know there was, I think New Vegas had a mod made by one of the developers, didn't it? That made the game a bit harder, a bit more survivally or something. And that's something interesting as well, because that's a really unique example of the developer. Or yeah, then what was intended, right? Like who says what is intended? Like it's interesting that like one developer took it on himself to sort of be like, well, this isn't the game I wanted to make, so here's the game that I thought it should have been the whole time. Yeah, I think that's right. Because is he the director or the lead writer, or both? I feel like I get him confused with someone else, but maybe not. Because I've not actually used that mod. I've just sort of read around it. Like when I read through these kind of discussions, like what mod should I get, that mod will sometimes pop up as a recommendation. And the fact that it's an actual author changing it in a way that's not, like, it's not included in the official Steam patches or anything like that. So potentially you're not seeing the full developer intended experience, quote unquote. Yeah, I don't know. It really is a fascinating question. Is it just difficulty related, or does it add other things? Do you know? Yeah. No, it's something I think. Yeah, I'll have to make a video on. Balance adjustments, reducing the level cap. Right. Okay. Yeah. That's yeah. Like those are mechanical changes that really would overhaul the entire game experience and how someone sees it. Like that one person who's playing with that might see it as too hard or something, for instance, or whatnot. Like therein comes the question of balance and mechanical fairness, and maybe that mechanical fairness will influence how people try to progress through the story, and change the whole rhythm and flow of the game itself into something completely different. And God, it's just a whole tangled mess, isn't it? Really, but it's something special. I think it's something to really be considered when we're consuming video games. We sort of, I didn't think about that very much when I was younger, but now it's sort of something I'm really trying to grapple with as to where game development ends. That's on the fan re-implementation of it that's meant to fix the bugs with it. That is honestly hilarious. That the developer of New Vegas released a mod, and that mod itself needs a fan patch on it. That's too good, actually. I didn't know that. That's quite apt. All right. Well, that was, believe it or not, Silent Hill 2. I think I chatted. J Sawyer Ultimate Edition. Right. Okay. Yeah. Would you? I'm wondering. Yeah, whether I should try the mod and see actually how it affects the game and whether it affects my experience of authorial intent or anything either. I don't know. It's. I guess I should try it. Like I've looked into it, but I've not tried it. So I guess it's something worth examining. Yeah. But no, boy, it's been a singular pleasure actually to play this on stream. I think I consider myself very lucky. I'm even in a position to play one of my favorite games on stream like this and to sort of ramble on about it for hours and hours and hours. Um, it's a special thing, and I think the remake. I have hope at the very least that it will be a touchstone for a generation of new horror fans, and that it does justice to the original source material. But you sort of can't help but be a little worried about what could happen to it. Um, the really bad things that could happen um, if it doesn't live up to it. Because I've been talking about this for the last hour and 20 minutes, but the level of atmosphere that's present is just amazing. And there's something like we'll watch my favorite cutscene again, right? The framing and stuff of and the way that everything looks is really quite perfect. Like these FMVs, like as much as I think Silent Hill 3 looks amazing,
Excuse me,
the look of these
I'm
is
sorry.
something that
I
can't
No,
was
it's
just.
be
okay.
changed or
I didn't mean to
replicated.
scare you.
Like the feeling of them is really special,
I'm
right?
kind of lost.
Like the way that they look and move is
Lost?
almost real, but not real, right? You're coming from a particular era, and they still look great. Like these FMV cutscenes, I'm just
Oh,
in love
it's
with
you.
the way that they're rendered and animated. I can't remember his was it Sato, I think, who animated all of these sort of by hand over many hours. He certainly did that in the first one. Sort of stayed up all night animating just to show that he could do it, right? But I think because the technology, like obviously, like the trailer for Silent Hill 2, the graphics looked great. Like for the remake. But like, just because something looks great doesn't, like, how are they going to
James,
replicate
honey,
this scene, for
did something
instance?
happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway?
Like, look at the way that the colors around the edges of the screen and stuff move.
Are you confusing me with someone else? You were always so forgetful. Remember that time in the hotel?
And the way we sort of like get more and more claustrophobic, and the way that it's framed so
Maria?
that it looks like James
You said you took
is
everything,
inside the cell,
but
right?
you forgot that
Is there like a
video
pulsing
clip.
effect? Yeah, it seems to be like the lights just sort of like
I wonder if it's still
alive
there.
or something, you know. It gives
How
the
do
whole
you know
scene this
about
really
that?
dynamic feel.
Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
The way that, yeah, like the edges of the
So,
frame
you're
darken when
Maria?
she says that and that kind of thing.
I am. If you want me to be.
She looks like scarily real as
All
well
I want
with
from
the
you
lighting
is an
there,
answer.
and like just her facial
It
expressions
doesn't
are so
matter
well
who
done.
I am. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real.
Like how like this stuff is like incredibly important to the actual mood and feel of Silent Hill 2. Like I couldn't imagine the game without these. Like, come to think of it, like when I was, this is just something I'm thinking of now, I suppose. But I could be quite concerned that like something like this, um, I guess like graphically it looked great, and I am like, don't get me wrong, like I'm very excited for the remake, and I'm glad that a new generation of people is going to be able to play Silent Hill 2, and it's going to be available in some way on modern systems. But you've got to wonder, right? Like this game was very much a product of its time, and you sort of wonder why, I guess, or how.
Mary?
Like it's such good stuff, right? The fog, the facial expressions.
No, you're not.
It's all really
Do I
iconic
look
stuff,
like your girlfriend?
and the voice
No,
acting as well
my late
is really
wife.
hard to beat.
I can't believe it. You could be her twin. Your face, your voice, just your hair and clothes are different.
My name
I think.
is Maria.
I mean, part of the problem might be
I don't look like a
like
ghost, do
the
I?
music isn't playing in these cutscene bits, which is a slight shame because the music is goes like impeccably as well with the FMV. So I really wonder like how it's gonna look, or what the. I'm sure Akira Yamaoka will do a good job with the soundtrack, but I wonder if will he just like remaster the old tracks? Will he try and make like a completely new soundtrack? Will it meet the mood and expectation of one of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time? I mean, like simply like I don't know, you know. Like if we just like listen to the track with the music over the cutscene with the music over the top of it, right? Like, and even this kind of framing, like the shot of like James slowly coming like into focus, just like the emphasis is on the environment rather than the character, right? Like you're sort of repulsed
Mary,
by the place,
could you really be in this town?
and by extension a little bit repulsed by the person, right? Like what kind of person is just going to wander in here, you know? It doesn't feel right. It's something I don't know, something really something really special. That was it's an item for one of the secret endings that sort of starts off here. So the rebirth ending, we need to collect 4 items. So I won't be playing that through now, but I did just want to emphasize just, I guess, how much of a product of its time it was, and how important it is that people understand that and also temper their expectations maybe for the remake. It's not. We've still seen very little about it, and I'd be really curious to know what's going to happen to it. Because I did read on the PlayStation blog post about it sorry, Mary. That So I did read that the town will indeed have no loading screens in it, and that's something that people wouldn't generally consider to even be a bad thing. But for me, that little black space between every room is something really special to the game. And maybe this is just Stockholm Syndrome speaking. Like, I've just been held hostage by this game for too long. But there's something really precious about that little bit of distance that we get between rooms, and just a split second of waiting for something to happen builds the suspense further. So without a loading screen, right, you'd probably be pursued from room to room by monsters, and all of a sudden that changes the entire flow of the game, right? Like, if a monster refuses to follow you out of a room, well, then you just stand in the doorway and shoot it from a distance until it dies, right? So they'll probably have to pursue you, and what that pursuit will look like will probably radically change the entire structure of the game. Because in this one, in the original version, the enemies, let's be honest, are not particularly smart, right? But they serve a really important purpose, and they're placed in rooms for a particular reason. And I think, and in one of the prototype builds, they were going to have Pyramid Head wandering the streets. But if Pyramid Head was wandering the streets, he's very slow, right? So he's so easy to evade. And the developers took him out because they knew that would reduce the threat level. They'd sort of make him look a bit silly or something. And if we all of a sudden have this problem of monsters following you in a big conga line or something silly, then their threat level is also reduced. There's no, it's a classic video game problem, but if we see too much of a monster, we're not afraid of it anymore, right? Novelty is where fear comes from, more than anything. It's the fear of the unknown and sort of the fear of what could possibly come next. That's what we're really worried about. And I mean, I don't know, the way that the whole gameplay rhythm is going to change, it's something that I've sort of been preoccupied with, and I know I wouldn't want to be in Bloober Team's shoes right now. Even if I was given the chance to remake this game, I think I'd almost I'd be too terrified to touch anything, because, or almost anything. I'd change the balancing of the Pyramid Head fight on hard. I think that would be what I'd do. But this trail here is perfect. These camera just this camera angle, right? If we think about just this camera angle, it feels like something is watching us. That there's something really, look at the way it pans is really natural. The town itself is sort of hunting us down. And with the remake being over the shoulder, what's going to be lost? There's a reason that the game was fixed camera. When I was younger, I used to think these things people just randomly decided oh, this game is going to be a third person over the shoulder game. That's just the decision that's being made for no real game design reason. But I've since come to realize, as I've grown older and returned to a lot of these older games, that there's an importance to all of these decisions, and I think changing something like that is something that really can't be done. It can't be done lightly, And just the subtle way that the music changes there as well, when you cross that tree, things just become more dangerous, more threatening. And these little hand painted pictures, or renders, or whatever they are, these are also integral to the game for me. And are they going to keep these? Are they going to change these? What is it going to look like exactly? You just sort of, I don't know, I work myself up into a little state of anxiety doing it, I guess, wondering about why and how they're making these changes. Just things to consider when you're playing games. I suppose it's just like a general like why are they doing this? But no, I should probably wrap up and have a bite to eat. I suppose I've been rambling for too long, really. Um, but next time, I mean, now I've sort of got myself worked up into next time I'll just return and play through Silent Hill 2 again. But I probably shouldn't do that. I should probably come back next time and finish streaming. Um, finish streaming the original Pathologic. I think is my goal next to get that off the list. But rest assured, I think I will be returning to this as a at least a relaxing sort of constant like chill chat analysis sort of thing. I could talk about this all day really. So pretty interesting to hear what my thoughts are. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad it is interesting, and also that it comes out coherently on stream is always nice. It really is as I said before. Huge. It feels like a huge privilege and a huge pleasure that I even get to do this to analyze Silent Hill 2 on stream and have people tune in. It feels very special. So thank you for tuning in. And yeah, is that was Silent Hill 2, I suppose, for now. Um, One of my favorite games of all time. So have a good day, everyone. Stay safe. It's a pleasure. Thank you.